All Hey, for Vetted VA Live, we got another crew of experts, a great crew of experts with us tonight. But we're going to be talking about the spring and summer buying season, what it means for you as a veteran, as a home buyer, as a home seller. So we have Alexis Brown, an illustrious realtor from Tennessee, covering that part of the country and that side of the aisle for us. I got Leroy Romero and Nathan Einkorn in Arizona and Colorado. I'm here in California, so unfortunately, the three of us are clustered here in the bottom left side of the country. But we are approved in many states and deal with all of you guys around the country. So with that, Lexus, I'm going to give you the first crack at it. Why are there more sales in spring and summer than other parts of the year? And everywhere, even places where we are, where the weather is pretty good, and Tennessee, where it doesn't get all that bad.
Okay. Well, a lot of it has to do with two things: the school year and weather, right? Okay, so while maybe not everyone has school age children or children at all, it's still most people, a lot of people do, excuse me, I'm trying to be careful with my wording here. A lot of people do, and people choose to move when school is out. Now, there's also something called weather here. Now, of course, in sunny Southern California, where there's just two seasons, spring and summer, right, year round, people don't have to worry about packing up when there's an ice storm or a blizzard like we have in other parts of the country. So, weather also plays a part in that because anybody who lives anywhere near where it gets cold, right, Nathan? Who wants to move when it's like -2?
Well, Nathan, why don't you talk about that? From an area, you also have an issue. You're not like permafrost there in Colorado, but there are periods of time where you can't get a look at a house like you can in the middle of the summer when it's buried under snow. Is that some of what buyers are thinking about avoiding the snowy season?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely an issue. Here in Colorado, it's a little bit different than some of the other snowy states. We're lucky enough that even when we have blizzards that drop 2 or 3 feet of snow, Colorado gets more sunshine than almost anywhere else in the U.S. So we, that snow is gone usually within 2 or 3 days. So it's not a huge issue, but it definitely slows down. People don't want to move during the winter, and I think what Alexis had alluded to earlier is that's nationwide. The school thing is huge. Even if you don't have weather, just the winter cycle, people slow down. Holidays, there's so much going on between Thanksgiving and right now, right? February, the new year happens. People are we're coming up to tax season, right? There's just all these things that are just going on that keep people from wanting to make changes. And then I think the country just comes out of their group hibernation, so to speak. And starting in March, people are looking at those tax returns that are coming, right? They're starting to make those plans that maybe it's what they were waiting on so they could pay for the mover, right? For us with Vetted VA, I mean, what season is coming? It's PCS season, right? So that's the other, and that's a huge mover, especially in states like Colorado, right? We've got Fort Carson, we've got Buckley, we've got, the Air Force Academy. There's a lot going on here that revolves around the military, and I think that's true in almost all states.
It's not strictly weather related, but I think what you said has always been, so this is the 28th year that I've been doing this, and people always say you get into the holiday season and people always want to go, well, it's really slow for you, right? I go, no, because people don't actually plan that way. They stop wanting to put in a loan application or look at houses between Thanksgiving and New Year's. So it's like January ends up slow, but closing deals out through the holidays is always fun because you have the people missing days because of their Christmas party. We have shortened days because of holidays. We got a 4-day weekend for Thanksgiving. So it ends up kind of stressful there. And whether it's weather related or not, although we have the New Year's resolution, people come out on January 2nd and go, I want to buy a house this year. They don't really start doing anything about it. And one of the things we're going to talk about tonight is that timeline of, cool. Someone on January 2 says, I'm buying a house this year. They're not in a house in February. It kind of gets pushed out a little bit more. Before we jump into, there's a really interesting chart that I want to share with everyone here. But before we jump into that, Leroy, you're based out of Arizona, warm, no weather. How much seasonality do you see besides what we've talked about?
Yeah, it's hot and hot. We don't really have spring. So actually what we see in Arizona is our time, when you look at the MLS, right, as a licensed real estate agent since 2013, licensed lender since 2009. the way we kind of track here is once the Super Bowl is done, it skyrockets. And then it starts to kind of slow down. But we also see that slow down when it's 116 degrees outside. It's a little hot. And so a lot of that activity will slow down almost like it does during the holiday season. But what's important about those two seasons, it actually becomes more competitive and more serious for sellers. And I know we're going to talk about sellers here in a minute, but I guess the advice or what I see here in Arizona is when those markets shift, the transactional account doesn't really change too much. We've got a lot of inventory in the spring. We've got the snowbirds that come in. Snowbirds are people that come down to the warmth, right, get out of the cold. And so whether they're listing or changing their life at that time, we see a huge influx of inventory in the spring, which allows you to have maybe some more competitive offers. However, in July, August, right before what Alexis said, is that when school starts, it's more serious buyers. And it's the same thing in the holiday season for Arizona. So it's very unique, especially in a city, I should say, in Phoenix, Glendale metro area, it's more serious when it's hot, and it's more serious as far as the potential buying part when it comes to the holiday season. It's unique. It's very different. The entire country.
You teed up the first piece of data here that I would like to share. Let's see if I can do this right. Well, unfortunately, I didn't get our slide really good. I got us over here to the side in tiny little boxes. But what I wanted to show everyone with this slide, and it's funny, Resi Club, they do everything backwards. To me, red would be the hot months when things are going like gangbusters, and the purple there would be the cool months. But that's not how they did it. So again, in California, you think we've got good weather. We don't have snow. They shouldn't have as much seasonality. But I saw probably 15 years ago a study that had been done that said almost all of the appreciation, even in a normal year where it's up all year, most of that appreciation happens in this spring, summer buying season. So what you can see here is March, April, May, June are the hottest of all of them, really April, May, and June. But this is nationwide going back to 1990. And kind of what I like to point out is these middle years here, 2007, 2008, 2009, 2010, people look back and remember those as, oh, those were terrible years. And especially 2007 and 2008 were. But if you look here, even as early as 2009, 2010, those middle months went positive in terms of appreciation. So it's important. I get, and kind of the thing that brought this back to my mind that I started thinking about it a few weeks back is I had a buyer in Massachusetts reach out and just wanted to ask some questions. We're not even licensed in Massachusetts. And they said, do you think we should jump in now? They were at about the $800,000 price point, which is entry level in Massachusetts. It's nuts. The Northeast, we're going to show another map here. If you're in the Northeast, it's about as bad as it gets in terms of entry level buyers having to fight competition. And they said, we're thinking we want to lay out the spring, summer buying season. And they said, okay, well, I understand not wanting to be bidding against as many people as possible. But when you see that chart, you kind of see that that is the hot month because that's when buyers are out there. There's more buyers relative to the amount of sellers that are available, and it pushes prices. Alexis, is that what you see in your market?
Yes, absolutely. So in my market, summer's hot. And actually, I feel like there's an uptick around Christmas. But again, I feel that has to do a lot to do with the school year. So here in Tennessee, our semesters end at Christmas break. So it's another good time to list or to buy. Mm-hmm.
So have they switched in Tennessee where the kids get like 6 weeks off for Christmas now instead of 10 days?
No, sir, it's very traditional here. Thank you very much. We don't do year-round school. School starts in August and gets out in May.
I feel bad for parents here in California. They tell me that their kids have been around the house for like weeks and weeks. They're like, we're ready for school to start. But it does, to your point, give them time to actually get out and buy a home if you could squeeze it in there.
Mm-hmm. Yes, absolutely it does. Yeah. And plus it's PCS season. Nathan talked about that. I know for us, when my husband was active, especially as our children got older in school, he would try to align it to where we were PCSing in the summer or around Christmas time, However, for some military families, it doesn't always work out that way. So depending on where you are, it could kind of be year-round PCS. Yeah.
So why don't we jump in and think in terms of what does it mean for buyers, and then we can talk, Alexis, a little bit about what it means for sellers. If you've decided this is the year and we're gearing up, more homes are coming on the market, but more buyers are getting out there to buy them, what are you guys giving as advice to people, or those that are calling and maybe not really aware of this seasonality and knowing that this is the busiest time of year for realtors, lenders, sellers? Nathan, what advice are you giving people, or where do you start with folks that are looking to wade into the waters?
My advice never changes. It's start yesterday. It doesn't, you can, trying to time a market is just it's insane. It's insanity. If you want to drive yourself crazy while buying a home, try and time the market. Try and time trends, because guess what? There are billionaires that get that wrong. So your lowly loan officer and realtor, we're going to do the best that we can for you. But the best advice that I can give is just, as soon as you want to buy a home, that's when you get started. Even if you know that, hey, we're in this station for 2 more years, and we're going to buy at our next one. Okay, cool. Start right now. Because if you're that January 2nd person that says, I'm going to buy a house in 2022, just for your sanity, I hope your plan is to buy June or later, right? Give yourself time, unless you just know that you are extremely well qualified, you carry no debt, you have excellent credit. If that's your situation, you know what? You're the person that can call me on a Friday and get pre-approved and go put an offer in on a Saturday. Those people do exist. But even in that instance, it's still a scramble. We still got to collect docs. We still got to, you still got to go through that process. So my advice is always get started as soon as you possibly can, even if it's a year down the road, 6. There's no such thing as getting started too early. I want to give props to one of our VVA members, because they literally they're moving in May of 2025, and they called me and we got started today. And I was just like, I love you. Like, tell all your friends, right? Like, just, this is the way to do it. So
and a lot of times
the rush or that seasonality that we're talking about right now,
those people end up apologetic. They're like, well, Nathan, I'm sorry, we're not buying until 2025, but I'm the preparer. I'd like to get going. Like, never apologize. It's never too early, because generally, without fail, the person that thinks, oh, I'm super well qualified, this is going to be easy, I know exactly what I want, they're the ones that, as soon as they reach out, you pull the credit, something's on there. It could be totally wrong. I had a buyer a few years ago, like millions of dollars in the bank. They were the mayor of a fairly large city here in Southern California, made good money, and had a business that also made good money. And we look, and their credit card company, the auto payment from Wells Fargo, the check, they had the thing where it was mailing out the check. Well, Wells started putting the wrong account number on there. They had 6. They were like 180 days late on their credit cards. I don't know how they never noticed that this was coming back, but they had several of them, and they went from thinking, hey, we're gold plated. But if they had, obviously they found the home also. So if they had more time, we would have been much, much better off.
That cable bill that they forgot about, right? That didn't get turned off properly, or didn't get transferred over to the new tenant's name when they moved. I mean, those are the things that come up and bite you. And I mean, I've had the same. Like, the person's like, oh, I'm good to go. I make $250,000 a year, and then you're like, oh, well, apparently Sprint doesn't think you're a very right. So, yeah.
Leroy, tell us a little bit about, Nathan kind of went through it. It's never too early, but there's not a typical timeline. I mean, some people move really fast, some people move really slow. It's been difficult finding homes in a low inventory market. But what does that timeline look like? If on January 15th or Super Bowl Sunday, someone goes, they saw the commercial and they're like, I'm ready to go. What's a typical timeline to get the pre-approval done, get out, make offers, get something under contract? So I'm not even talking about once you have a home under contract to getting it closed. What does that pre-timeline look for most of the buyers that you're working with now?
I think I would say 6 to 9 months is probably sufficient. I love what Nathan shares, because as we've gone through this, and everyone that's in this circle right now is very educated, understanding we've been all doing this for a very long time. So what I can say is, if the market's changing and moving, and so the more prepared you are on the front side, so you don't have those hiccups, because they come up more often than not. So 6 to 9 months, I think it's let's start to have that navigation call, that discovery call. Let's go through that process. Are we going to pull your credit? Well, yeah, we've got to pull your credit, right? We've got to look at what the diagnosis is going to be, because sometimes, like what you had shared, Josh, is that sometimes how you feel is not what's actually happening on the inside. And so that would be the thing I would say to the consumers or anybody that's out there, whether they're listening to. I think there's some timeline on that one. You got to think about calculation, listing. What are the net proceeds? We've got some stuff we're going to talk about here in a few minutes about changes coming up and those things. But I think the diagnosis on the credit, so you know you're good, right? Are we a 550? Are we 580? Are we a no FICO? Good luck on that one. Does it exist? Yeah, and so do unicorns in my head. Can it happen? Maybe. I don't know. But what we can do is if we start that process early enough, then we know what we need to do. We know the steps that we can take, and we can give the guidance. When we don't have that guidance and we're up against a 60-day close, which is kind of a long time, but a 90-day timeline, we know we're PCSing, whatever we're doing, if we don't have the proper timeline, we can't properly prepare. So I think the sooner the better in mind. So 6 to 9 months, like Nathan had said, 1 year out. Okay, great. So here's our 1 year plan. What are we going to do? How are we going to work on this? Because Josh, honestly, when people think about buying homes and we look at the VA community, this VA community, right? Zero down does not mean zero cost. We've seen markets where veterans have had to come over list price or pay their own closing costs. We've had a little bit of a shift, but we want to prepare ourselves and our veterans in that shift such that if they do need closing costs, they want to be prepared and ready to go to battle when it comes to home ownership. So that's the way I kind of look at it. Hope that helps.
Absolutely. I mean, you kind of said it there is, it doesn't have to take 6 to 9 months, but you should probably plan for it. And if magically you get pre-approved and go out the next day and put a house under contract, wonderful. But it doesn't really happen all that often. We all get one of those perfect deals where it's a purchase, and from the time you talk to the person to them moving in is 30 days. But that is pretty darn rare. So Alexis, a loan officer, a buyer calls you up and says, hey, my loan officer got me pre-approved. I'm good for $400,000. I want to get out and find a house. Walk us through what that timeline looks like, how in the current market, in your market. And we're going to show a chart here that all real estate is very, very local. So please, when you see the things talking in the media that inventory is up or home prices have dipped or home prices have gone up, it's very, very local. And we're going to show that chart. But in your market, Alexis, what's that timing looking like to see properties, to make some offers, get one accepted? And then once one's accepted, what are you seeing in terms of closing timelines?
Okay, so first, the majority of my clients are active duty, PCSing in and out of Millington, the base that's close to where I live. So everyone's timeline is time is of the essence. You know, the first thing I'm going to ask is, all right, when are you reporting, right? If they're already here, a veteran or just, you know, anyone looking to purchase a home, then we get into the timeline talk. But since this is vetted VA, and we do have a lot of military in here, I'll speak on it from that perspective of PCS timeline. So it just depends on when's your report by date. Is your family coming with you? Are you accompanied or not? Are you going to send the spouse out ahead with the children if there are children? When you want to come out for house hunting leave, things like that. So I know I've talked before about this, Josh, but when you're PCSing on orders, sometimes people are reaching out, like Nathan said, somebody a year in advance. Often, though, it could be just like 30 or 60 days before their arrival date. So when that happens, we have to hit the ground running, okay? But kind of going to what I spoke on earlier as far as the school timing, I work with a lot of families. So a lot of people are also wanting to move when school starts. I don't know how it is in other areas, but here in the Memphis metro area, where you live, so whether you rent or own, where you live is where your child will attend school. We don't have like options and school vouchers like they do in other areas or military waivers, unfortunately. So if people are trying to move for that school, you know, then we got to, you know, act quickly. But going back to your original question, what's that timeline look like? Once we sort out when exactly they're trying to be into the house, then we set up an action plan. We can start, if it's months out, then we can start casually looking at houses just to evaluate what they like, what they don't. If they're new to the area or getting to know the area, this also gives them opportunity to get feels for different areas of town as well. With regards to closing, I'm in a strong 30-day market, meaning that sellers that list their homes today are expecting to close within the next 30 days. So pushing stuff out 60 days, 90 days like that, unless it's new construction, I'm not saying it's completely unheard of, but it's just something that you could kind of lose out on a house. Now, I know Leroy was talking about closing costs and stuff like that. When you initially talk to a real estate agent, first, let's get this clear. When you're wanting to purchase a home, oftentimes people want to come talk to me, the real estate agent. That's great. Hi, hello. I'd love to talk to you, right? But it's also very important to talk to a loan professional first. Okay, so you could talk to a you could talk to a real estate agent and kind of get to know if you like them to help us. We can help you find the home that you like. But it's very, very important that you reach out to a loan professional too, early on in the process, like everyone here is saying, okay, even if you're not reporting for like a year, still don't hesitate to reach out. It's never too early to be prepared. But back to that, once we've established price point, we can start looking at homes just so you're acquainted with the area and you know what you like. And also to discuss the competitiveness. Certain areas might be more competitive than the others. And that is something that I know we're talking about in Southern California or in Arizona or Colorado. But even within the own cities, like Leroy, where you live, maybe there might be areas of town where real estate moves slower than other areas. Okay, so that's something that's interesting and important to know as well.
Well, let's look at it. Let me throw this up here. This was the chart that I wanted to show. This is Lance Lambert over at Resi Club does an awesome job of pulling data together and analyzing it. This chart, when you're not looking at a picture of it, you can click on every one of those lighter or darker areas, and it goes all the way down to zip code level of telling you what's happening. So the reason why I like that is all of us get calls from people going, well, I know the market is this. And like, well, no, that's what the headline said. And the headline is talking about this big national market. That is not a national market. So again, I'm going to talk to Lance. I'm actually talking to him next week. I'm going to tell him you guys switch this because we cannot have the blue that looks like the market's cold being the part of the country that's hot and the red being the downside. But if you look at this, when I was talking about New England, we have people on the YouTube live that I do on Wednesdays. Those folks up in New England, Massachusetts, they're just like, this is terrible. Like, you cannot get an offer accepted. That is the hottest part of the country. We also have people that are in California that go, oh, I saw prices are coming down, or the prices are up, we're 10, 11% year over year. Well, it largely depends on where you are. If you're in Southern coastal California, you can see we got dark blue. If you're in the Bay Area, you're up and have seen, dips. But one of the things that Alexis talked about that is incredibly important is, even in these areas, like Seattle up here, you can't tell, it's kind of in the middle, but I was talking to an agent in the Seattle area that specializes in first-time buyers, and in his market, that's about $700,000. Expensive first-time buyer market. He goes, prices never dipped at that point. Some of the luxury stuff dropped, but, without going too far into detail on this, Nathan, how does that match up to your market or anywhere in the state of Colorado? What are you seeing in your market?
We've been steady. I haven't seen anywhere in Colorado that's lost, right? That's been down to the zero. I think we're, that color map in there is pretty accurate. But like you're saying, it's also Colorado Springs is one of the fastest growing cities in the country right now. I mean, it is. You talk to the agents down in the Springs, they're like, what dip? What slowdown? What are you talking about? It's nuts. And my agents that are down there are just, they're running around like chickens with their heads cut off. Houses are still 30 days. There's still a super ultra competitive market. Not really seeing the offers go in over asking, but most of my agents are requesting, like, to be competitive. Hey, can we close in 21 days? Can we close in 17 days? Like, I gotta put, my buyer can't necessarily offer more money, but we gotta be more competitive, which kind of to me goes back to what we were talking about earlier, just being prepared as early as you can, because everything, all things being equal, sometimes that 20, you can offer the same amount of money. And if you got a buyer, because this is what we are seeing a lot of too, is contingencies, where these sellers are trying to buy another house, and that house they're trying to buy is contingent on the sale of their house. And so it's, that's the kind of the shift that I've seen, is just kind of trying to get closed quicker. But our values are still still increasing. I had one of those bad stories where I had a client who she was in the market last summer. It didn't work out. She changed her mind. I think bad advice from dad, probably something like those lines. And she just came back, and it's not a huge amount, but the same area that she's looking in, the houses are probably, $10,000, $15,000 more than what they were in August. And if you are at the top of your DTI range, right? If you're at the top of what you can afford, oh, wow, she just priced out of that neighborhood. And there was a specific community that she wanted to be in. And, now it's, okay, well, now we got to save more money, or we got to readjust that loan, or how much she's got to put down. That's what that's where we're at in Colorado.
You brought up an important point that I want to circle back to, but before we do that, Leroy, I wanted to ask you, on one of these lists I saw today, the Phoenix Metro from the peak in 2022 is down like 3%. But how does that match up? That's, again, the Phoenix Metro, all the cities, all the price points, taking everything into account. And oftentimes that measures median price. And oftentimes that can just mean more lower priced homes. As rates and payments have gone higher, more lower priced homes are selling. It doesn't mean prices are going down. It means that median is sliding down if you're not looking at something like Case-Shiller that's a paired sales, repeat sales index. But how does that match up with what you're seeing when you're probably having people reaching out to you saying, hey, I see home prices are dropping. I think I can get myself a sweet deal, when I know that doesn't necessarily match up with what you're seeing in the Phoenix area?
As you can tell in the smirk on my face, it's completely fake news. It has no. There are pockets and what they're doing, but Maricopa County is the #1 county when it comes to VA home loans, and that's not in addition to conventional and FHA. And it's also one of the largest actual counties in the United States, and there's several cities within that county. So if they're pulling in these smaller cities of what they're doing, we're not talking about Northern Peoria. We're not talking about Glendale. We're not talking about, we might be talking about Phoenix, but we're not talking about Scottsdale or Goodyear and that. So no, this is a boots on the ground situation. So work with a professional, don't read the news. I think that's probably the key thing. Here's what we are seeing rather than a dip in prices. We are seeing a lot more seller concessions. So I don't know if it's the agents that we've maybe educated out here. I would say that the agents are representing their sellers in a way that they're not dropping prices, but they're really coming to bat with concessions. And that's what they're coaching them for. And we're seeing that. We're not seeing low appraisals at all. Inventory's balanced. And I think you kind of hit that topic a little bit. There's no longer that shortage, but we've got so much influx of business that's coming over to Arizona. There's more inventory, but it's more of a balanced market, which means a stable market for us. So yeah, sorry, Josh. Yeah,
that is big picture what we want to talk about. You need to rely on your professionals, primarily on the real estate side. Hopefully your lender is also watching that market and has data and can help you with that. Alexis, from that perspective, if someone comes to you, we didn't really give you the opportunity to kind of go through the Memphis market, but how do you go about educating them in terms of reality of the market versus what they may be seeing in the headlines, which are primarily, again, on the national level?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, on the national level, it's middle of America right here, right? So we're not always on the national level for things, okay? But it depends on their price point. Kind of like what Leroy was talking about, certain price points are more competitive here. It just depends. I've said this several times before on live. The right house is going to be competitive. If it has all the bells and whistles, everybody wants it, right? Good school district, ages of systems, things like that, because it's not just always price points. Sometimes it also comes into play. Does it need to be remodeled? How does the HVAC, if you're living in a hot area like where I'm at, roof age, things like that also comes into play. I do want to talk about something here. When Nathan was talking about it and talking about how sometimes people want to close fast. That's great, right? If you want to move fast. However, remember, the seller needs to be okay with that too. Okay. I can tell you that there's been times when I'm on the listing side of a transaction, when we encounter multiple offers, it's not always about terms such as dollars. Okay. Sometimes it has to do with terms such as closing date. All right. So always before your agent submits, you and your agent come together and plan out an offer. Make sure that your agent has connected with the listing agent or the seller directly to inquire about when their desired move out time is. So that way you know how to write the offer competitively. Okay. Because what works for one house and one seller might not work for another. Right. And a lot of sellers right now, for the most part, at least that I'm encountering here in Memphis, they're sitting on a lot of equity. Okay. So they're kind of a little bossy on things, like Leroy was saying. They're giving up concessions and things like that. They're not really trying to lower sales prices much, but they're giving things towards the house. So here in Memphis, I advise this. It's not always best just to go in really low for the house. You know, if you need closing costs paid, you consider, as long as the comp support the offer price, consider going closer to offer price or at offer. We're really not seeing a lot of homes going over asking price here. I can tell you on my listings, the last 6 months or so, it's like 50-50. Half the times the sellers are paying buyers closing costs, all or a portion of, and the other half they're not. It just depends. And again, a lot of that has to do with the house.
I think something that all of the answers that three of you just gave brings back to something I think is essential and super important. In the internet age, people will often reach out to a lender before a realtor. You know, when I started doing this in the 90s, 70% of people talked to the realtor first, and the realtor was referring them out to their lender. And that was sort of how the process worked. But a lot of times we get people that find us online, whether it's doing a live show, whether they went to the vetted VA map and they find someone and then they go find their real estate professional. Or if they found the real estate professional, they went online and find a lender. It is still incredibly important that that lender and that realtor work together. Nathan, what are some of the things that you do, whether it's a realtor partner that you work with 10 times a year or someone that one of your buyers has found directly? What do you do to make sure the two of you are working together to structure that offer optimally, both for what the buyer needs and how to get it accepted out there in the real world?
Well, first, it's clear communication. I was smirking earlier because one of my realtors is apparently watching this, and she texted me to make sure that I said that inventory is still very low in Colorado.
Perfect.
And that is one of the
that is real time data, like right to the moment.
Right, yeah. So, you know, we use this word a lot. It gets thrown around a lot, but clear, consistent, and regular communication between the agent and the lender is so important. And not just the sellers or your buyer's agent, but the seller's agent, right? That's one of the, as soon as an offer goes out, one of the first things that I do is pick up the phone and call that agent and find out, I point blank ask, hey, what do you need to know about my client that's going to put our offer over the top? But then also, when they're putting that offer together, like that, my agents will call me, hey, how quick, how well qualified is this buyer? Because, right, if we got a sticky loan, right, we got a manual underwrite, or we just got, some issues that got to be fixed up, through the process, like, hey, I need all 30 days. So, we can't, put that loan objection deadline out here, put the inspection deadline here. Like, how quick can we get the appraisal back? Well, that's the great part about the VA loan. It's the only loan that has a deadline, right, on when that appraisal comes back. So that makes it a little bit easier for us. But it really is just, working with our clients, gaining their confidence between not only me, but the realtor, so we can have those conversations about how well qualified the client is, what they need, right? I got clients that are at the top of their debt to income ratio. Hey, you know what? They need to know that property has a $300 a month HOA. It's a no-go, right? So send me the properties they're going to look at before you even go, so we're not wasting people's time on properties that they can't afford. Or if I got a client that's cash strapped, like, hey, in that offer, like when you put that in, we need X amount of dollars in concessions. That they have to have it. My borrowers do not have the funds, right? They have the funds for the appraisal, they have the funds for the inspection, they have the funds that they need, but we need some help with closing costs so that the realtor can properly structure the offer. Because the worst thing is, when you have if you're not communicating that, and I've seen this happen where they go put an offer, they're at the top of their price point, and especially here in Colorado this year, taxes and homeowners insurance, we got crushed in Colorado. Personally, my taxes went up $1,500. My homeowners insurance went up 40%. And that was statewide, right? So some of these properties, the listing, because these people are looking at Zillow, right? They're looking at something and they do not have accurate figures. And so you got agents and you got clients looking at the taxes and the homeowners insurance that Zillow's talking about, and I'm going, no,
Not even close.
It's not even close. So it's you want to have a team of an agent and a mortgage broker that know each other, that work well together, or even if they don't know each other, just that they can get along and immediately like, hey, in the end, I always say we all have one goal, and that's getting you to the closing table.
That's
So
right.
with-
What
with-
Nathan
with a-
is saying
with a
is
smile on
spot
your
on.
face. Yeah, with a smile on your face, not just getting there. Because Alexis, it shocks me sometimes, but sometimes I'll get an attitude from a realtor, like, well, I introduced him to my guy and they didn't want to use him. And it's like, hey, we have a mutual interest here. It's
That's
almost
right.
like it's almost like divorced parents. You got the child, and that's our best interest. The buyer, everyone needs to have their best interest and work
They
together.
do.
Whether like they don't like, I can't do my job. Nathan can't
Yeah.
do his job without the realtor. You can't do that job without us. So I didn't mean to cut you off, but
No, but I'm going to say this, like listening to Nathan talk. So I know Nathan, I know Leroy for sure do this. So for our viewers out there listening from a real estate agent's perspective, when I get clients, right, new buyers coming along and they're pre-approved with the large national lenders, right? Guess what? We don't have any communication. No one's saying nothing, right? I'm like, it's pulling teeth. You know what I mean? It's like, okay, why do I want to talk to you? You're not even answering phone calls, or everything's done through a portal, through an app, okay? So, or you can't talk to people after hours. What Nathan is talking about when we're talking about buyers being prepared for the spring and summer market, this is critical here, right? When you start talking to people, if you don't have a connection with them, if you just think that they're just feeding you trash, they're not communicating with the other part of your transaction, whether it's a real estate agent not communicating with your lender, or the lender not communicating with the real estate agent, you got to, keep it moving and find people who are going to be working for you. Because if they're not willing to communicate, then they're not working in your best interest. Okay, so that's all I can say here. So good plug for Nathan and Leroy on that, because both of these gentlemen handle their business.
well, one of the things I was going to say when Nathan was talking, it's not just what he said, it's how he said it. First of all, let me ask you, Alexis, if you have a listing, what percentage of buyers, lenders will reach out to you proactively without you having to make a phone call to them?
Hardly any.
Okay,
A couple years ago, it was a thing. Now, hardly any. I don't even get updates on appraisals, meeting value, nothing. So I just add them to a list. Okay, yeah, we're not gonna talk to you again. So this happens with FHA, VA, conventional, USDA, doesn't matter. Sometimes they talk, sometimes they don't. When they do reach out, they try to establish communication, letting me know that their buyer is strong, things like that. It does help. It does help, especially if we're in multiple offers, because then I could take that information back to the seller or do a conference call with the seller and the buyer's agent, the buyer's lender. So that way the seller's on board and feeling comfortable about that, right? Different parts of the country, there's different issues. In my area, I'm not saying it's an issue necessarily, but sometimes jobs change. Credit can be an issue depending on the price point of the house as well. So having that reassurance from a loan officer when you're the listing agent and the seller really does help secure the deal.
And where I was going with that, most people don't do it. When they do it, Nathan didn't just say the right thing. There's a way to go about it. Those that do, some of them are so eager to get their offer accepted that they just start throwing stuff at Alexis. Alexis, we can close in 2 days. Alexis, these people make $40 million a year. And you're like, whoa.
Not in Memphis. That is not happening in Memphis. 40 million. No, man.
But they start throwing things at the agent that mean nothing to the agent or their seller. So Nathan said, what could I tell you about my buyer that would lead to acceptance? And they went, well, could he close in 14 days? And you give them the opportunity to tell you what is important to them and their seller. And then you're not going to make up a story, but hopefully you can say, yes, we can close in 14 days. You know that we're not getting a raise until, day 28. We can't do that till it goes into effect, whatever the case may be. But Leroy, you've been smiling there. I know you thought to add to this process.
I have a lot of thoughts. So Arizona is a little different. So we have 2 forms. One is the Arizona pre-qual form, and the other one is what's called the loan status update form. Now, that is not a form us as lenders actually have to fill out, but it is part of the contract. And if that form is not filled out by the lender, then the consumer is now in breach of Arizona contract law when it deals to real estate. So for us on this side, like we've been like whipped into shape where that's a must. So when Alexis is like, well, they don't reach out after that, I'm like, oh my gosh, are you kidding me? I have 60 different lines through the entire transaction I have to send every single week to the listing agent and the buyer's agent. So we've been conditioned on that. So to hear that, I was just like mind blown. But again, we're in different parts of the country, right? We all have different contracts and what we're doing in different states as real estate agents. From the lending perspective, do we have to do that? No, but like what Nathan was saying, we do that because we care about the client and we want those relationships too, right? We want them to send us deals. We want to send them deals. We want to know that we're dealing with a true advocate on both sides of the transaction. So I think that the thing I would say, Josh, is that when a mortgage professional, a listing agent, a buyer's agent, when they're all starting to communicate, it's how they communicate and open communication. Like Nathan said, what do you need to know? Where are we at? Here's what I'm going to do. If I was a lender, if I was choosing a lender, Josh, and I was communicating like to Alexis and saying, hey, here's what I do as a lender. 2 seconds. If you're willing to accept my client's offer, you can ask me any question that obviously does not breach any type of financial security, anything like that. I can walk you through the process. However, if you can take just a few minutes, I want to let you know that every single Tuesday, you're going to get an update where we're at on the process through the entire file, when the appraisal has been ordered, when it's been received. If we're having challenges with documentation, every single week, you're going to get a list of everything that's going on in the file. Are you okay with that?
I love that. Yes, sir. I'm okay with that. I'm good. Bring me your buyer right now, Leroy.
Well, I apparently did a bad job of letting everyone know we're here to answer your questions about spring, summer buying season or anything else mortgage or real estate related. We've got experts here that want to give you those answers, but we do have a comment. Jessica Wells says communication is key. Lenders need to do better. Is that true? You two that work on the real estate side, do lenders need to do better at their communication?
Yes, I just said that, Jessica. Yes, girl. Yes, ma'am. Okay, represent the P&W there, Miss Jessica. All right, VA bingo. But yes, I do think some lenders need to do better, especially going back to some of the big box operations. I'm not saying that everybody who's independent is just on top of, primo with everything. But in my experience, the ones that are big box, you're just a number. You're really nobody. They work 8 to 5, 9 to 5, don't work the weekends, Good Friday, not working. Okay, nothing. We're like, the markets are closed. We're not working. Real estate happens at night, after hours, right? After 5 p.m. and on the weekends. So if your loan professional is not working, if you go to that website and they say their hours of operation are Monday through Friday, 8 to 5, then they're not good for you, period.
Well, you talked about it being a numbers game. For those of you that don't know, the biggest retail lender in the country, not on the VA side, but the biggest retail lender in the country, their call center loan officers get about 10 leads a day. And some people hear that, that would be awesome. I get 10 leads a day. That's like my nightmare. There is no world in which you can appropriately follow up with 10 leads a day, 10 the next day, 10 the next day, 10 the next day. It's like triage. It's like, are you alive? Do you have a pulse? Are you going to close next week? And if it's a 3 months down the line, it's like Nathan said, someone buying in 2025, it's like, cool, call me back in 2025. I got 10 more leads I got to call tomorrow.
Are they properly pre-approving you? That is something that's very important too. So when you're dealing with someone that kind of has like a line, an assembly line, right? A factory for loans, then are they properly pre-approving you? What you don't want to have happen, we're talking about, Nathan mentioned, people could reach out a year early, right? Leroy saying as soon in the process is better, right? Early as you can, reach out to people. If the loan professionals aren't doing a good job evaluating what you got going on in your situation thoroughly, it can hold you up in the last minute where you're thinking, hey, we're about to move. Everybody's excited. The kids have picked out their bedroom. You've got the movers lined up. Okay, change of address in. And something happens that could have been prevented or worked through earlier in the process. Sometimes that happens too with larger lenders. Just saying.
All right. We didn't get any more questions, but Leroy has an admirer. Hi, Leroy. We don't know who it is because on
Who's
Facebook you
that?
have to authorize it to say, but
Oh.
Leroy has an admirer.
That's Leroy.
I think that when we talk about big box lenders, because I guess we can go off scripts in this sense, but we look at this. So as a veteran myself, right, and as a VA advocate, educator, a lender, a real estate agent, when I think about the veterans in this particular community, we are sold so much with media, people that open up companies using the veterans name, being DB-Dayed, something else, and automobile associations, thinking that they have our best interest in mind. Do they do a good job? Yeah, they can. But it's just marketing aspect of it. So I think the thing that I love about this group is you've got live actual advocates who have gone through more education than any other companies that have out there that are online, that genuinely care, that stay up at midnight, late night with Leroy. I don't want to stay up at midnight and post and answer questions, but I do it because that's my squad duty and somebody might need help in that thing. And we do that unsolicited. So that I think that's what the power is for this group, particularly, is those that are in this particular group are so educated on VA loans. And if we don't know, guess what? Nathan's going to call me out. Alexa's going to call me out. Josh is going to call me out if I say something inaccurate, and they're going to back it up with facts and data. And here's the great thing about the moderators, Josh, in this community. We don't take offense. We're like, roger that. My bad. Sorry about that. I misquoted it. And so we have that community. And unfortunately, we are so just compounded with marketing about VA loans and using the VA loans and this and that, when we don't really have a genuine human that actually cares that's in the community. We have somebody that's on a call center, on a phone, hiring high school students or college students to come in and fill out that lead form. And there's nothing wrong with that, I guess. But that's the challenge I see, Josh. I just wanted to bring that up because Alexis hit a very hard point, which I fell a victim to in my own circumstance. So just ask more questions from your loan officers. Ask more questions from your real estate agents to understand that they have the experience as you navigate through the process, whether it's this month, 30 days, a year, 2 years. I've had clients out. And so make sure you're asking those questions. That's what we're here for.
And because the reality is, every loan officer you talk to will say, yes, I can do a VA loan. Once they work for a bank that doesn't do them, they're all going to go in a market where they're just slower and all the refis are gone. They're going, oh yeah, I can do a VA loan. It doesn't mean they're a VA expert. It doesn't mean they know. And you may not need a VA expert. You may be, retired, Social Security and VA disability. It's the easiest loan ever, but you still want the knowledge and expertise and the ability in case anything goes wrong. So if you are looking for that, we can cover you in any state in the country. Go out to Vetted VA. You can hit the map, find a professional just like one of us in your state on the real estate or the mortgage side. Real estate is much more local. So many of these states, you might look and go, hey, there's no one in my town. Reach out to that realtor. They're not going to come and try and drive across the state and sell you a house, but they can help you get connected with another realtor who is closer to you that can absolutely help you along those lines. So you guys covered this last week, but I feel like it's worth reiterating because the NAR lawsuit is set to go in effect in July. It still has to be approved, but from all appearances, it looks like as of July, there may be situations where sellers don't want to pay a commission and buyers are asked to pay their realtor. Alexis, how is that going to work out for veterans?
Well, if you're a VA purchaser, you cannot pay your agent's commission or transaction fee, whether it's on the books or off the books. So what's off the books? Like someone saying, hey, cash at me, Zelle, slide me a stack of hundreds, although listed. Okay, who wants to slide me some money? No, I'm teasing.
Send me an Amazon gift card.
Okay, not Amazon, but other things. But anyway, folks, it's not allowed. All right, all joking aside, you can't do it. Hopefully the VA does something about this soon. If you are a VA purchaser, then most likely you we're the service member yourself and you've served our country. You have a right, as I see it, to pay someone if you want to or not. Maybe if they want to cap it or something at a percentage, that's one thing. But, you're grown up, over 21, voting, you can do what you want to do. But you can't pay your real estate agent commission. So things to look out for. Have that discussion with your agent. If you're concerned, how's this going to affect you? Then have that conversation with your agent. Understand that every market's a little bit different. So in some markets, you might see instantly sellers are saying they're offering nothing. In other markets, as we talked about here earlier, some price points are slow. Some areas of town move faster than others. So therefore, every market and every house is going to be different. Have that conversation with your agent earlier if you're having concerns. But definitely recommend having your own representation. Understand this. Just like when you go into that new construction model, that big, beautiful house. Okay, guess what? That nice, friendly rep in there, they work for the builder. The builder is the seller. They don't work for you. All right. When you go to the listing agent, it's legal in a lot of states where the listing agent can represent both sides. But understand, they're representing the seller. When I go and get a listing, I sign a contract with the seller. Okay. So having your own representation is going to be important, but still have that discussion with your trusted real estate advisor in your market.
Well, this is good in California, Alexis. They just changed that dual representation agreement. There's a separate disclosure, and it literally says on there that the listing agent is not your agent, even if the forms that you are signing through the contract imply that there is an agency relationship and they are there to represent the seller's interest. So it spells out in big red letters.
You know how much I like California, Josh. You guys do it right there.
We're trying to get you to come back. You keep saying you're going to do it. You talk about all the issues in Memphis, the wonderful city of Memphis. We're waiting for you to come back. We're waiting for you. Anyways, guys, we try to keep these to an hour. We're rolling close to an hour now. And I always like everyone to have final thoughts, advice, tips, tricks, anything that you want people to know. And Leroy, since you're stuck on the top row here with me, you get to go first.
Well, I think I love the topic of the NIR piece. And so, I think the biggest thing is business is definitely not norm. I don't agree with that statement at all. Business, as far as taking care of consumers until this action happens or whatever, yes, in that sense. So I think clear communication is good. Do I think veterans need to pay agent commissions? Absolutely. I've always stood up for that particular thing. I've got a couple things at the VA I don't necessarily agree with. We can hit that when we do cash out refinances later and whatever. But I think that don't live in fear. Live in the fact at the moment, like if you're going to purchase a home, now is the best time if you're not going to do it yesterday, right? So I think that's the biggest thing is get out there, talk to your agents. And I do think, and I have, maybe this is just a little wishful thinking, is I think that the real estate agent community will recorrect itself. And I think you'll see a lot of what's called agent friendly people in the MLS, and I think business will continue on. It might be a little different, but agents have been doing this business for a very long time, and that's kind of been the norm. And it's not been a bad norm by any means. I think it comes down to negotiation in the contract. That just still hasn't changed. It's not changing in the future. And so I think proper representation on both sides of the transaction is very important for the consumer. We've seen this. I would call it manipulation from builders, steering towards lenders, because that's exactly what they do. Will that ever get regulated? I don't know. Hopefully at some point, because that's not fair trade practice, in my opinion. Doesn't give the borrower an option. So ask a lot of questions, ask more questions, connect with the right human individual in a local market or state if you're a lender, and we'll get you to the right place. And we're not going to solicitate your business. We're here to help and serve you, and that's why this community exists.
Great advice. Nathan, what are your final pearls of wisdom today?
I'll go back to something that Levi had kind of touched on when it comes to, the lenders and their knowledge and what they know, and what every member of EDVA needs to know, whether it's real estate or whether it's lending. We take a test, right? And it's a test. It's a standardized test. It's like 20 hours for us. It's like 6 weeks for the realtors. Then we go take this test. Once we pass that test, we are licensed and we can do any loan product that there is. It doesn't VA, FHA, USDA, conventional, construction, reverse, right? There's no additional required education. And so I just want to really just emphasize the fact of the additional education that the members, the moderators of this group have gone through. You'll hear every one of us say it. It was the hardest test that any of us ever took. Chris is a masochist and he wants to put us through torturous pain and question our knowledge because you do it. The whole time you're taking a test, you're like, I don't think I even know how to do a VA loan anymore because Chris asked questions I never. But just understand that your loan originator that you're talking to or your realtor out there on the street, they haven't taken, for the most part, 99% of them have not taken an additional class or any certification to make them better at serving veterans in active duty with VA loans. So I just want to emphasize that it's the training that we go through is really intense and it puts us on another level.
Perfect. Alexis, final words?
Final words. All right. Well, the topic of tonight's live is how to best be prepared for the spring summer market, right? So best be prepared. Strong communication. Make sure that you feel good about the team that you have hired to help you, your loan professional, your real estate agent. Also allow yourself an opportunity to think things through, right? Sometimes when you buying and selling can become a very emotional roller coaster, right? It's a very big transaction, whether you're buying or selling. But stay positive and try not to get too emotionally tied to the transaction. And what Nathan and Leroy said, hello, Vetted VA is where it's at. Come here, ask us questions. We're always here to advocate, to support with no strings attached. And above all, celebrate your win, right? So once you close, come back in, tell us you closed. We love celebrating here.
Perfect. So if you are watching this out on YouTube on the Vetted VA channel, any of the other places, and you're not in the Facebook group, head out to the Vetted VA Facebook group. We have moderators in there all day, every day, as at midnight, as Leroy mentioned, that we'll answer any and every question you have and make sure that you are on the right path. So we will be back next Tuesday with another crew of experts, another important and timely topic. So to the three of you, I thank you for being here and sharing your knowledge and wisdom. And for those of you watching at home, we look forward to seeing you next week. Have a good one, everybody.
Thanks, guys.